Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I have some additional information that has happened some time ago that I just kind of stumbled into as I'm usually directed to things. And that is the case of Wilfried Wong, the British barrister, attorney, that has been a long-time satanic ritual abuse investigator who was, and it's been a few years now, was arrested while trying to rescue a satanic abuse victim. And this is really a very sad case because of the fact, as most of these investigators don't really understand what's going on out there in the kind of insipid, incestuous filth that is out there that is trying to entrap people. And this goes through a line. Now, this incident happened, and I believe, and I allege, that Wilfried was set up. He was set up by a fake victim. And of course, we certainly know where this by a fake mother who claimed that her child was a victim. This was set up by the satanic community in Europe. And of course, this woman was, guess what? Is it a big stretch? She was a German woman sent by the German Nazi Satanists to entrap Wilfried with this entire situation. Now, people are not a little bit, they're very naive. And that includes. And it's very interesting that this thing started to happen right after Wilfried came out and found the connection between the infamous Jimmy Savile, who got away with the horrendous acts of child molestation for 30 years and was cuddled and coddled and babied and paid millions by the actual British establishment. This guy was a celebrity of sorts, was on shows, did all sorts of things. Even though, all you got to do is look at Jimmy Savile and see this guy is pure scum. But everybody did it. And of course, our famous assistant to all this. But the important thing here is not this incident, which has ruined the life of this dedicated and good man, Wilfried, who acted impulsively and kind of naive. But this gets back to the fact that naming Jimmy Savile as a Satanist involved with a group, and we do know that this is really the case, so at least we allege it as best we can. All of these things are very difficult to prove. And of course, he's connected with the other alleged Satanists who tried to entrap me as well, Louis Thoreau, who he was buddies with, and who even on film invited Jimmy Savile to stay in his London apartment with his wife and children. Ooh! And why was that? Well, that was because there were ceremony plans that I allege, and we should be contacting authorities to have Louis Thoreau's children checked out for satanic abuse. So I will be following up on that very soon. This is a serious problem by this person who is one of the lowest scummy people out there. He even wrote a chapter on me accusing me of being a Satanist, which is even, and of course he wanted to set me up like he did with Wilfried, but I didn't fall for it. So the whole idea is that, and of course, all of this is in his garbage book that he makes money off of me. And of course, I didn't see a penny of anything. And he just used and abused me, spending 12 hours with me and putting 3 minutes worth of garbage tape up there from his sick, perverted mind. This is very typical of Louis Thoreau, who has been worming his way into many different media outlets to use and abuse people, as he has done recently with his Scientology, where, as he does with most people he interviewed, he attacked the person that was helping him. How typical, Louis baby. But the bottom line is that Wilfried was set up. This whole thing was set up, And of course, they moved in the main perpetrators of this, some sort of German woman who then claimed her child was being abused, to set Wilfried up. Plain and simple. That's what I allege. Again, as I said, these things are very difficult to prove. But all of this happened where he was set up after the fact of him announcing that Jimmy Savile was linked to satanic cults and satanic practices. So I don't find that unusual or strange. This is another way of going after this person, setting him up, getting a person who had nothing but the welfare of a child involved, felt so motivated that he had to go there and save this child while the authorities, as they usually do, can we call them that? The corruptlings, the Unenforcement Bureau, decides to do nothing. So this is a complicated case as usual, as all of these are. You know, any kind of abuse is very difficult to prove. It's similar to so many cases that we have out there that are horrific cases, but how can you find someone guilty of things like a date rape, drugging people, and then supposedly having sex with them? This has been with two very famous people, Danny Masterson of present time, Bill Cosby of past. And how do you prove this, though? And the fact that several people come forward stating this, well, you know, I don't know if that's valid or not. It's like there's so many things of tying people into all sorts of things based on very uncredible information. It's really tragedy for everyone. So it's he said, she said, and there is virtually no evidence proving anything. Well, there is no evidence proving. It's just a fact, this guy did this to me. And to think that someone could be sent to prison for life for that is pretty scary. So as we look at this case, now, I guess Wilfried, after many years of research and seeing the total neglect of following through on this, finding the many implications and connections, and I believe that Wilfried had turned up a lot of very dangerous information connecting Satanism to a whole bunch of people, even though in his last major interview that I saw on YouTube, I don't know if that was his last one, but one of them, claimed that he has heard all the stories, but he didn't have any evidence of the royals being connected directly. But there certainly is lots of evidence that Jimmy Savile was, and part of the Jimmy Savile cult are several other prominent people. So this is a very difficult situation that must be handled properly. But here we go with this person who heard the stories of the terror being done to this poor child by these satanic group or satanic father, and God knows what else was going on there, and thought so much of this to get his group together, being conned and manipulated by this German, to take actions, to the point that since the authorities, as I understand it, and it's hard to put the pieces together, and again, I don't have time to spend months or weeks investigating every aspect of this, refused to do anything. Now, apparently, they investigated the case, and as I just stated, how do you prove this? So, the problem with children is they're very unreliable. They could be telling you 100% of the truth or some fantasy. After all, we fill their heads with talking mouses and all the other garbage that children are shown and representative, the cartoon world they live in. And it's been shown that their testimonies in general are kind of fantasy-based. And again, this makes it even more difficult. How do you prove this? Well, I'm not sure what the authorities did. I'm not sure what the length of abuse is and what happened. But this is notorious of the law enforcement people to do nothing, as they did with the McMartin case, where there was plenty of evidence against these people of their satanic acts, including hundreds of turtle bones, which just happened to pop up in the schoolyard there. People said, well, what does that mean? What do you mean, what does that mean? Where do you get hundreds of turtle bones from? That they were traumatizing the children by killing their little pets they had in the classroom. So the whole idea is this is really the typical situation you get. Now, all of that is very important to understand what is going on here and how difficult this all is. And since there really are no authorities out there to really state what's going on with all of these things, and of course, the lack of interest and the corruption within all of government and everywhere else. We saw this with the appalling case of Jimmy Savile, who knew everybody and was everywhere, from the royal families to all the politicians to a whole bunch of people in the media, and of course to good old little reporters like Louis Thoreau, who couldn't wait to bring this darling man into his home yet again. So the whole idea is that we have all of these things going on to prove that there's a lot of complete evil acts going on, but it's very difficult to nail these down. I don't think we can prove any of it. That's the problem. But here we go. I mean, he was so traumatized, so victimized and entrapped by this person that they decided to go in like anybody would do that has any kind of morality, would go into, and balls as well, went in there and grabbed this child away from the family. Now, this is generally called kidnapping. You can't go and grab anybody, regardless if you think you're saving them. Wilfried did state that this was a rescue. This was not a kidnap. What was the point of kidnapping this person? It makes no sense. But if you take somebody who is unwilling, and I'm not sure if the child itself was unwilling, but certainly there is a problem here. That this is a very terrible place to put yourself in as a rescuer. Remember, there are no saviors for Robin Hood. There are no good guys to come out and help you. You'll be thrown to the proverbial dogs, and they will eat you, otherwise known as the establishment or those in power. So this is a very terrible incident. Now, what added to this, and I'm not sure how this came, I'm not even sure if it's 100% true or not, all we can go by is media coverage, that during this, to secure this child and rescue it, that he himself brought with him a weapon. This weapon was a knife, which is very typical, as firearms are not overly prevalent in the UK and particularly Europe in general. So the whole idea is that I'm assuming he brought this knife to protect himself, which certainly makes sense, but the whole idea is that you are putting yourself in a very legally poor position. And that is the fact of now you're carrying a deadly weapon. And of course, even within the United States, if you commit a crime with a gun, there are penalties involved with that are very steep. So we have to fully understand that in the bigger picture. So the whole idea is that this can easily happen. So that was a big mistake. I'm not sure if there was enough of these people. And of course, his fellow compatriots in this, there is conflicting information that they were tricked as well, whatever, trying to get out of these charges. But I'm not sure that he necessarily needed to have a weapon at that point. And certainly, this is something that is a serious problem if you commit a crime with some sort of weapon. So we do have to keep that in mind of the problem here. So he decided that he needed a knife for one reason or another. Now, I wonder if that was part of someone suggesting or telling him that, look, these people are dangerous. Now, I don't know. I'm speculating here as I'm speculating with this whole case here and who's involved. It's all alleged. Who knows the ultimate truth here? But, life is like that. I'm afraid. Everything is twisted, bent, and thrown in the garbage. You have to pull it out of the garbage. You have to try and straighten it out, and it's never as straight as the original. So you never get the full facts. But I wonder if he was coerced into carrying this knife or told to carry a knife for one reason or another, and generally threatened the mother, I think, or I don't know why it would be the mother, whoever was there, to take the child under duress of the fact that he was threatening them that if he wasn't able to take this child, that he would cut someone's throat. Or not. As I said, I don't know the full details. And I'm not going to believe the media. I don't like to believe anybody. I like to come to my own conclusions, even though certainly I'm sure Wilfried has his own thoughts on this, and probably not overly willing to share them. But so the whole idea is that he, and I don't think he's ever stated that he didn't have a knife. But the point is he brought a knife there and threatened, so the story goes, that, look, we're taking this child, and if you get in my way, we're going to cut your throat. I don't know what the exact words are. So as I said, it's all speculation from pretty bad news stories. So he was found guilty of kidnapping and I don't know what the exact legal term of it, and having a weapon and threatening someone with it. And they gave him, what was it, 18, 19 years? Don't quote me again on that as to the details. I researched so many things, it's hard to remember all this stuff. But the point is, he got a long prison sentence. It was at least 18, 19 years. For this particular act because he was carrying a weapon, and one of his other people got 16 years, I believe, that was with him. So these are the type of things that happened over there in this very confused and very Robin Hood type case, which he naively didn't understand how he was being set up, as I was trying to be set up, as I allege, by Louis Thoreau, who tried to get me out in the middle of the desert in Las Vegas, where he thought I was living at the time. So the whole idea is these are the type of things that they do. And the fact of connecting and putting the pieces together with Jimmy Savile, which I don't think he gets, and the connections there that run deep to the other people like Louis Thoreau, who is again connected. I mean, the circle gets connected pretty easily here, or the alleged circle, or the alleged connections, because it's really hard to prove any of this stuff. But we all know that certainly everybody now is certainly well aware of the horrendous things that Jimmy Savile did, and his contacts with very influential people, and his interview with one of the most scummiest people out there, Louis Thoreau, who tried to set me up and wrote nasty books claiming that I was a Satanist and everything else. And this is really pathetic. And then tried to entrap me even years later by getting me to go on shows during COVID and other things. Even when I told him, you want me, baby, you put the cash out. You already made enough money on me. But I would have never met with him anyway. But the point is, this is the kind of ridiculousness you get from these people. And he's lied to me on many, many occasions of what we're going to do and so forth, just so he could use me and further entrap me. This is the kind of person that this Louis Thoreau, who they put out as a court jester, and then sent him to do his, as I allege, to investigate terrorist groups and everything. It's amazing how he goes from weird weekends to interviewing terrorists in Nigeria. Let's send the stupid idiot guy with the Beetle haircut and the Charlie Brown clothes he wears, and send him in. So it's really unbelievable, the lack of credibility. And as I said, his latest Scientology bit that he put out there, attacked the guy that was showing him the inner aspects of it. I mean, this guy just didn't get it. The guy doing that to work with Theroux, because you think he's, and they all come out with, where the BBC. Oh, yeah, we heard that in an old Hollywood movie. They're supposed to be the good guys. Well, we all know that the BBC, like all the other media, is controlled and certainly has no credibility in my mind, not in whatsoever. So, as all news media doesn't have it. But certainly this goofball interviewer who put together really a bunch of crap stories, and definitely is connected family-wise and everything else into very strange areas. So there's a whole line of family history, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I allege, of corruption in his entire family, dealing with his American father, who was allegedly working for the intelligence community, and basically up to no good. And mommy, who apparently worked for the BBC, and how he wormed his way in there too. So this is a strange and odd family that has no talent, that has nothing but connections to push them on. Certainly the ill-informed, poorly put together reporting of Louis Thoreau showing up knowing nothing about me whatsoever. And then, of course, saying he was tricked by me in his book because he was such a professional that I was into things he didn't like. He never saw any of my literature, any of my paperwork. He jumped on this as a fun story to fit into his weird weekend things, and of course used and abused me and my organization without any proper payment for my services or time. Then further took that and put it in a book to libel me and attack me and calling me a Satanist because that's what he wants to label everybody. And the reason he wants to do that is because there's some nefarious connections there himself. After all, he was big buddies with Jimmy Savile, to the point that he invited him to stay in his home. Now, that's on film, people, and I have a copy of it. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of scumbucket reporting that there is, and very typical of the BBC in general, which are not a very credible organization anyway, or any news media for that matter. So this is a sad story of a good man trying to save a child from the evil and disgusting clutches of Satanists who use and abuse them. We saw what happened in London a few months ago, spurred by E.A. Knetting's postings and his books that say go out and murder people. That's what Knetting states in his books, where some deviant Satanist went out and murdered 2 women in a park. This is real, people. This is happening everywhere. And this person who decided to take action to save a child in a very naive way was entrapped and put in prison for the rest of his life, meaning there are no top satanic researchers and people watching Satanism left in the UK. Very effective, destroyed his organization, destroyed the leader, and by the time he gets out of prison, he'll be too old and feeble to do anything. This is the plan. And of course, this comes from the capital of Satanism, coming from the Germans who sent this woman in to get him. So let's make sure everyone understands the facts here. Let's put all the pieces together, as I've done with people like Michael Aquino, the Temple of Set, and other things, where there are enormous questions and very little answers. And those people who do come out and state that they knew or had problems with someone are all schizophrenic people that are seriously mentally ill. How much information can we get from people like this that has any kind of credibility? So it's sad. It's sad for everyone, sad for these poor traumatized people. But we can't certainly build a case based on somebody who has 7 personalities, for someone who is notedly mentally ill, etc. That's what these people are that make claims on certain people. And, this is all part of the polluting the stream or the lake to confuse you of what's really in there. So while everybody's looking in one direction, everything else is happening in another. So again, these are very difficult cases, even if the law enforcement involved in this situation were sincere or not. How do you prove this? What is it? Now, we need to have proper systems set up and experts in there that can figure out if these children have been abused. What's going on? This is a special case that has to be looked into, and the authorities should have special people that can assist them. Apparently, they don't have that. But it's hard to prove abuse, period. As I've mentioned, it's hard to prove so many things where people are horribly, horribly hurt, raped, etc. How do we know? And is it justifiable to go on a he-she trial and convict somebody based on their word alone? Well, I personally couldn't convict anybody on when there is no testimony, I should say no physical facts. And this is a problem. So, and we run into this here. What do you do when you have a case like this? So, they found a naive person who went out there improperly with a bunch of raw supporters, I'm assuming, getting everybody psyched up, moving into a dangerous situation, thinking that they probably needed protection, taking a weapon with them and sealing their fate. Too clean and cut for me. Too easy. Too irrefutable. This all means that this was a setup, plain and simple. So it's really sad of this great man, Wilfried, who is trying to assist in this study, who's putting the pieces together, but certainly his pieces were put together to a great degree with Savile and Louis Thoreau, and then it all came crashing down. Isn't that interesting? If you think that's a coincidence, well, I have a bridge to sell you. Until next time.